Good morning, and thank you for being part of this Training Manager Symposium. My name is Scott Loggins. I'm one of the two Assistant Executive Directors for the California Commission on Post. Tomorrow you will meet my counterpart, Maria Sandoval, and yesterday you met our Executive Director, Manny Alvarez. The three of us are delighted to be part of this program. Mostly we're humbled by the reality that the collaboration that you as training managers have with the actual working staff of Post have created a phenomenal results across the entirety of the state of California. Like many of you, most of us were drawn to training assignments in our prior law enforcement careers. So for that, we have the highest level of tremendous respect and admiration and appreciation for all that you do. At Post, we fully understand that while we are at the forefront of law enforcement certification and course development, it's truly all of you in your capacity as training managers and leaders in your agencies that really who are on the leading edge of change. It's all of you who make sure that the best training is afforded to the almost 100,000 law enforcement professionals across all four corners of the state. For that, we're truly appreciative. The people we serve, the law enforcement profession, is continually evolving as case law, legislation, contemporary events redefine the service delivery needs of our profession. It's like playing a game where they continually change the rules in midstream. It's certainly a daunting task with tremendous challenges, but fortunately the profession you work in and in which we serve has always stepped up and met that particular challenge. In fact, probably law enforcement is the most noble of all professions on the earth and is staffed by some of the most creative and talented people on earth as well. Our law enforcement officers that we serve solve many of society's problems when no one else is willing to respond on a daily basis, often with minimal time to prepare and in the most hostile environments. Adversity doesn't intimidate law enforcement, and I'm always humbled to bear witness to the honorable manner in which the overwhelming vast majority of those in your profession and the profession we serve deal with these current events. Now, this is where your skills, your talent, your expertise, and your passion as training managers and your commitment to the profession really come into play. As training managers and leaders in your organization, you are in a tremendous position of influence. As training managers, you have that unique position to ensure that the critical training needs by today's professionals is made available. Your work always ensures that they're better trained, better prepared, better equipped, and better positioned to meet the challenges of 21st century policing. My request of you is that when you develop and facilitate training for your staff, make sure it is the best possible you can get, that the outcome is a benefit not only to the careers and the professional development of the individual officer, but it also facilitates community trust, and it's also an enhancement to not only public safety, but officer safety as well. Please help collaborate with Post as we help foster a professional culture that looks at training as an investment, just not an arbitrary burden. So before I leave and hand off to introduce you to our introductory speaker this morning, there's two things I'd like to ask of you. First of all, on behalf of Post, there's an opportunity for you and your counterparts to be recognized in a very prestigious award. Each year, the Commission on Post awards people for excellence in training, and those particular awards are in the open nomination period. I ask that you please look among your counterparts and identify those people who have truly made a difference in law enforcement across the entirety of spectrum of training so that they can properly be recognized with this very unique and exceptional award. The other thing I will share with you is a quote from Socrates. And as a former cop, I will be the first to admit that I was never involved in in-depth academic endeavors, but this truly captures the spirit of training. If I may quote, "Education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel." So with that, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for this morning. Scott Savage has worked in law enforcement for the past 20 years. He spent 18 years with the Palo Alto Police Department and left at the rank of sergeant before joining the Santa Clara Police Department in 2017. His previous assignments include SWAT, full-time assignment in a terrorism and intelligence task force, and he was a team leader on a crisis negotiation team. As a sergeant, he served as the incident commander on various incidents, including peacefully resolving non-criminal barricades. Scott's the founder of Savage Training Group, which is a law enforcement training organization that presents modern and dynamic training courses. Scott has instructed the courses entitled Response to Non-Criminal Barricade, Disengagement, and Special Relationships across the United States. The goal of this course is to give officers and supervisors the tactics and best practices to respond to these difficult situations. The course also helps students understand how to manage liability when disengaging from non-criminal barricade. Scott, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Scott. Appreciate that. Great introduction. Just want to say thanks for having me, and a couple of things that Scott said there that kind of just resided with me is sort of the challenge to training managers to provide great, excellent training. And I think that's not only something that Scott's asking of us, but I think also that society and the public's asking of us. So yeah, thanks very much, Scott. Listen, I just want to kind of get started by showing maybe a quote, a saying, something that I know you will all be very familiar with, is this saying that's in law enforcement, right? This saying that this mantra, this slogan has been repeated for decades, hasn't it? And it's repeated all the time, that when asked, gee, why did we do something the way we did? Oftentimes the answer is this. That's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've always done it, right? And I think if you just take a step back and think about that phrase for a second, there's a lot, that's a very loaded phrase. And that's the way we've always done it for certain things is great. Because ours, the profession of law enforcement, is steeped in tradition, right? Steeped in tradition, from the uniforms that we wear, from the way that our badges look, to the way our cars look. It is steeped in tradition, and a lot of that's great and doesn't cause us any issues. Where sometimes this saying can take on a negative meaning is when we're asked, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you act in that way? Why did you choose to respond in that way? And our answer is not founded in science, best practices, well defensible reasons, but really the answer becomes because we've always done it that way. And maybe in years past, we got away with that standard, right? That standard was good enough. That standard met whatever metrics we needed to meet. But I believe that society, the public, the media, and certainly police critics are telling us that's not good enough anymore. That's not good enough anymore. And that's the way we've always done it. If you think about it, is a very low standard if there is no other explanation for what we're doing. So today I'd like to introduce you, to propose to you, to suggest maybe that's the way we've always done it isn't good enough anymore. And I want to take just a little deep dive into that saying and figure out, well, then what is good enough? If that's the way we've always done it, doesn't meet our needs anymore, if society's asking us to do just a little bit better, right? Then what is good enough? What does that look like? If you took a look at this picture, this graph on the screen there, and you asked yourself, which one of these do you spend more time doing? How would you answer that? Which one of these do you spend more time doing? The word training is probably in your title. Go look outside your office right now. Does it say training on the door? This is a training managers conference. I own a training company. That's what we're talking about today, right? Training. But look at some of the key differences there between training and compliance, between what we call training and compliance. I'll give you an example. Every so many months, police officers need to go to the range and qualify with their firearms, right? They need to shoot at paper targets. There's a given score they've got to achieve. There's a standard they've got to achieve. What's the reason for that? Why do we have police officers do that? It's to qualify them, right? It's if they were to be involved in a shooting, that we can prove competency based on this form they filled out, or based on the instructor saw them shoot this, we can say that they were competent, they were compliant. compliant with our standard. The department says you got to shoot at least 85%. This officer qualified and did that. Question, is that training? When we try to teach police officers things, we have them go to our continual professional training, our AOTs, our CPTs, our yearly trainings, whatever the terminology is there. And we've got to have them get certified in domestic violence update and racial bias training and all those things. Are we training or are we ensuring compliance? Look at some of the key words on there. Compliance, the word compliance deals with things like rules, standards, regulations, law. That's an interesting one. As a training manager in 2020 in California, going into 2021, I'm trying to think of a more difficult job. Yeah, I can't think of one. What you're going to be asked to do now is read, digest, understand, interpret a bunch of different laws that are coming into play and comply with those laws, right? You've got to train your officers in perhaps implicit bias training, different skills that they need and comply with those laws. Question, did learning occur? Did learning occur? When you look at the word training, it involves things like coaching, teaching, knowledge, development, learning, right? Experience and skills. How much of what we're about to do next year to be compliant with certain laws, how much of that is about training and how much of that is about compliance, being compliant? At the end of every training that you present, at the end of every class that you send your officers to, at the end of every session that you do, ask yourself this question: did learning occur? Because compliance usually occurs. This person sat in that seat for 4 hours, or they, took the online test and passed it. Did learning occur? I'm not talking about compliance. Did learning occur? This is a huge law that as law enforcement training managers in California, that you are being asked to comply with starting in January 1st, 2021, right? You have already navigated the confusing, muddy waters of AB 392, and now as you're maybe just coming around the corner in the breakwaters, SB 230 is hitting you. SB 230 is hitting you. If you're not familiar with that, very much you'd want to become familiar with that, because it actually has a lot to do with law enforcement training managers. What is SB 230 asking you to accomplish? What is SB 230 asking that you do? Well, it's not asking you to do anything. It's mandating. It's mandating you do things. It's mandating that you send officers to a variety of different trainings, and that you update your policies in these certain areas and whatnot. And one of the main things that SB 230 asks of you, mandates of you, is to send your officers to de-escalation training. De-escalation training. In a moment, I'm going to ask you, what is that? What does that look like? What is de-escalation training? How will you know when you complied with 230, with SB 230? Start thinking of some answers to that and throw them in the chat. What is de-escalation training? In other words, if you were totally compliant with SB 230 and you sent your officers to, quote, de-escalation training, what does that look like? What does that mean? How will we know when you're compliant with that? Think of some answers, throw it in the chat. I'll give you an example. Is de-escalation training verbal judo training? Tactical communications training, that's the new name for it, right? Learning how to talk to people, right? Is that de-escalation training? Is de-escalation training something like in a mat room with like defensive tactics, where you maybe talk somebody down, that that is mentally ill, perhaps. Oh, is it mentally ill training? Is it like CIT stuff where you learn the symptomology of different disease processes, maybe what medications they take, you learn how to talk to someone with a single voice? Is it something on the range? Oh, maybe it's something on the range where, as opposed to always shooting and priming the officer, every time I have my gun out, I shoot. Maybe that's bad. Maybe now we have somewhere you holster and you don't shoot. What is de-escalation training? Oh, the chat is disabled. Well, that doesn't work. So you can put it in the question and answer. You can put it in the question and answer portion. Michael said emotional intelligence training. Well, gee, that's a fifth definition. I didn't even mention that one, Michael. Emotional intelligence, meaning being aware of self, self-regulating, self-control, maybe a maturity that manifests itself by, just the ways you deal with people. Interesting. What else? Dwayne said teaching officers to listen and communicate as opposed to giving directions. Well, that is interesting, as teaching them to listen, maybe more like negotiator training, like hostage negotiator, right? Active listening, minimal encouragers, talking people into doing things they didn't want to do. I think that could definitely qualify. Jeff Scott said it's all of what you mentioned. Oh, wait. That's interesting. So if one agency sent their officers to tactical communication, but another went over here to the range, those are both good to go. Could be. I don't know. Sergeant McCoy said, will this be a one-time training, meaning our officers had a post-certified 8-hour de-escalation training, or will it be ongoing? Fun fact, SB 230 says it is ongoing. It is initial and ongoing, not or. You brought up a great point, Sarge. This is actually going to be a lengthy process. So once you send someone to the de-escalation training, then we're going to do more ongoing training. But have we figured out exactly what that is yet? Lindsay said it is de-escalation, or builds off guardian versus warrior mindset. That's another one. That's the seventh one I think we've heard. Juan said should be all of the above. All components should minimally include some aspects of de-escalation, just like all post-use of force firearms and DT training contains legal aspects and case law. Interesting. So Juan's basically suggesting perhaps it's now holistically incorporated into all classes. So, hey, all instructors, get ready. All your classes are getting modified. So then when we send officers to just our regular classes, that counts. You probably see the point I'm getting to, right? You probably see the point that I'm making. Sometimes laws are created, now bear with me, sometimes laws are created without a lot of specificity, right? Without a lot of specifics. So we send officers to this or that, and maybe that complies, we're not sure. Maybe it's up to the agency to say what complies. Question, did learning occur? If we comply, if we do any of those things, did actual learning occur? What is the point of sending officers to this training? Is it to comply with the regulations? Is it to simply comply with those regulations? Is there a higher need there? Catherine says de-escalation training when possible, slowing things down to possibly open up a wider field of options, whether or not some of those could be used. I think she's quoting and or at least she's saying what's exactly in line with Post's new de-escalation manual, right? Their new 134-page de-escalation manual, opening up more options. Great. Okay. So tons and tons of more ideas are coming there. I mean, there's a ton coming through here. Are we on the same page? How will we know when we achieved that standard? It's ongoing, Could it be something we haven't even thought of yet? But the larger point is, what should we teach officers in de-escalation training? Well, you guys mentioned it. Some folks mentioned it, right? The things that are being trained in different de-escalation classes are things along these lines, right? Things along these lines. Some of the de-escalation techniques being recommended are things like officers should avoid rushing in and instead wait for their cover. You know, this is the big one I see on the street, is that in the academy, historically, we would teach officers to be sort of like no hesitation, immediate reactors, right? You call 911, we get there as quick as possible. We jump out of the car and we insert ourselves in whatever fray is going on. You know, modern medicine can't cure mental illness. People's own family can't figure this stuff out and come up with lasting solutions. But here comes a couple of young cops, right? And they're gonna try to solve it for you. Perhaps unrealistic. Perhaps that's an unrealistic standard. But yeah, we don't want officers rushing in. Speak to the person calmly. Some of you have put comments in there about the way we speak to people, right? So we're dealing with a guy and he's holding the knife or the bat, and we're yelling at him, drop the bat, 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 and he doesn't drop the bat. Is yelling a 19th time at him going to change it? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. If they have a knife, put a barrier between you and the person. These are some of the things that are being taught now, and these are in some of the new de-escalation manual from Post, the PERF report, 21st century report, and other similar texts. Try to use distance and time. Sure. A few years ago, 2017, I think it was, San Francisco PD used time and distance into an actual policy. And now you see that repeated, certainly in the new post de-escalation manual. Certainly, I think in some lexical, policies, we're starting to talk about use distance and time, because distance gives you time, discretionary time. You can exploit time, maybe to get additional resources there, that kind of stuff. Sure. Use multiple officers, use a team approach, right? Don't try to be the hero and do something by yourself. Ask yourself, do we need to make this arrest right now? Or can I wait till I get a cover unit here? Yeah. And this is a big one. The police should receive the person should receive medical care instead of incarceration when possible. When possible. Those are some of the factors that folks are being, taught to do now, and as part of new de-escalation training. Question for you: is any of what we just said new? Did I share with you something that you didn't know, or was it groundbreaking? Kathy says no, it wasn't new. Did anything? Christopher, wait, he says no, nothing I share with him is new. Yikes. There's a few people now saying no, not new, just common sense. We've been training this stuff for years, Mike says. No, Alex says, wait a minute, guys. So nothing I just told you was new? This is crazy. This is, man, I thought this was all groundbreaking stuff that I was sharing with you, right? So then what's the issue? You guys are all just saying, nope, we've been doing this for years. We've been training this for years. Question: what's the issue then? What's the issue? I think we could all agree that some of the videos we watch of our own brothers and sisters doing police work are not the best thing. Certainly there's probably always room for change, and we can do some things differently. But if we've been doing all this stuff for years, we've been training all this stuff for years, why are we seeing some of the issues on the street? And more importantly, how come the public isn't satisfied with the way we're doing business? I think you'd all agree, public doesn't seem too overly satisfied with everything we're doing. Whether we like it or not, our legislators are asking us to do something different. It's not up to us to decide whether we like it or not, being asked to do something differently. Why then are we being asked to provide additional training if we've been doing this for years? Look at these things like officers should avoid rushing in, speak to the person calmly. If they've got a knife, use a barrier, try to use distance, wait for your cover, on and on and on and on. How long has this stuff been in police work, right? How long has this stuff been in police work?
You know, when Paul Harris came at me with that knife, believe me, I was plenty glad to have the help that I did have. But if he could have held off just a minute or two longer, I think that I could have talked him into dropping his weapon. I've done the same thing in other cases just like this one. In handling these people, it always helps me to remember that these people are scared, very scared. They're scared of their families, their neighbors, and of the police too. When a policeman gets hurt handling a mentally disturbed person, it's mostly because he has tried to handle the whole deal by himself or with too little help. The thing gets out of control, you use your weapon, and then everybody's in trouble. I remember one time in a case like this, I made a great big mistake. It happened like this.
We were over in the old first precinct. I was new over there and didn't know many people. We had spent the morning in court and hadn't even had time to get a bite to eat before we went on duty.
The river, the grain elevator. 46, Mr. Marshall.
Policía, no, ya no es policía, policía, no, policía. Policía, por favor, no le haga la policía, yo no vengo a trabajar con la policía, por favor, no le haga la policía. Estamos todos peleando, tienen una lucha.
Can you speak English?
No.
Do you know what they're saying?
Estamos hombres peleando.
Why? They have any trouble around here? Fights or disturbances?
No, sir.
Well, what's all the hollering about?
Oh, you always holler there for nothing.
Where do they live?
Like this.
Estamos hombres peleando.
Finish your sandwich. I'll go over and pan it. See what it's all about.
Okay.
Sí, yo no quiero que no la policía, yo tengo un problema. Ahí no se puede levantar, no sé qué pasa con ese muchacho. Ay, policía, por favor, café, ayudarlo. Él se ha caído, no se puede levantar, por favor. Ay, Dios mío, ¿qué pasará? Ay, trata de ayudarlo, no le vaya a hacer nada, Dios mío, por favor. Ay, Dios mío, ¿qué pasa con ese muchacho? Yo no sé, se ha caído, no se puede levantar. Trata de Dios mío, no vaya a hacer daño a mi hermano. Mamá, ayúdame, por favor.
To a mental patient in this condition, the threat of a gun is meaningless. What's needed here is manpower. In some types of mental disorder, a patient can be rigid one second and overactive the next. Unless he was knocked unconscious, blows would only make him more violent.
Looks like he's giving up.
All right, get the piece into the coffin.
In most communities, ambulance crews will not handle disturbed people. In the interest of public safety, the police cannot avoid this duty. Where they understand what these people are like, where they know what to expect and act accordingly, the police can do the job safely and effectively until a better solution can be found.
until a better solution can be found. That was 1960, and we're still searching for that solution. We're still searching for that solution. Notice that a lot of what you saw in that training film mirrors largely some of the comments that we were reading, some of the new things that we're being asked to do. That was a movie made in 1960 for the New Orleans Police Department about dealing with the mentally ill, because they realized in 1960 that the police often who are called to deal with the mentally ill are not necessarily the best or most equipped people, but there wasn't anyone else. Kind of like it is today in 2020. The police, although maybe not the best people to deal with the mentally ill, are often called to deal with the mentally ill because there isn't a better option, right? There isn't a better option. A lot of interesting stuff in that sergeant in New Orleans is talking about, hey, I didn't wait for my partner, who was, by the way, in the car eating a sandwich. We don't necessarily recommend that. But then he used some unconventional means. He fought him off with some less lethal tools, chair. And then I'm sure you've read the PERF 21st Century Report, which advocates that American police officers use riot shields, plastic riot shields, to take on adversaries who are armed with knives, right? As opposed to us shooting them. They would, that report recommends what Scotland does, use shields. You kind of saw the sergeant maybe doing a version of that, and then with pillows, and then rolling him up in a carpet. Don't know that we can advocate rolling him up in a carpet. Was it effective at restraining him? It looked to be. What has changed? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. That training was from 1960s, which mirrors what we are talking about today in 2020 as the new training we're going to provide to officers. My question for you is, was that training effective? Is the training we're going to send our folks to effective? It'll be compliant. It'll comply. We will check the box saying we sent our officers to de-escalation training. But what is the point of this training? Is the point to comply with the law? Right? If given the choice and you had to choose between one, don't know why you would, but if you had to choose between compliance and learning, which would you prefer your officer have? Your officer who's on the street making split-second decisions in volatile, uncertain, tense circumstances in austere environments, who is not really the best person to deal with the mentally ill in crisis, but is tasked with that by society. Do you want them to be compliant, or do you want them to have the skills, the knowledge, the mindset that will actually help them on the street dealing with that person? I think we would all advocate skills, and that's some of the comments that are coming in now. The reason that I would vote learning, skills, knowledge is very simple. The stakes are too high to not have that. In days past, we got away with, it was okay, it met our needs to simply send people to check the box compliance-based training. That standard isn't good enough anymore. As we go into 2021, as professionals in California, as law enforcement professionals, that standard is not good enough for us. It no longer meets our needs. Society, whether we like it or not, is asking us to do something different. Julio brought up a great point. He says law enforcement officers are stuck in the middle of a losing battle, sort of a no-win situation. Isn't that interesting? Law enforcement officers are stuck in a battle, a no-win situation. Law enforcement officers are often being called to the scene of whatever crises have developed and are being asked to take action. Law enforcement officers are then videotaped or what have you. It's put on the news and those actions are criticized. And from the law enforcement aspect, we're saying things like, we've been doing this training for years. We've been doing this for years. You guys don't understand. It's really, really hard to talk down a mentally ill person, to deal with people who are armed with unconventional weapons, and all the other problems we go to. So maybe, just maybe, it's not a a training issue in the sense that we need compliance training or more training. Maybe we just need different training. Maybe some of that training is going to help us reimagine, rethink some of the things we do. For instance, when did the police decide that we are the best people to respond to the mentally ill? Why not the fire department? Think about that for a second. Did you get a vote? Did someone ask you your opinion? Right? Before I was a policeman, I was a paramedic. And we had all kinds of medications and gurneys and restraints and stuff like that. We never went anywhere until the police secured the scene. There's new talk now about bringing clinicians in and social workers in. Question for you. Will they go in without you first securing the scene? No, of course not. That's that's not in the narrative. So you're going to still be going in to secure the scene for the social workers who are going to come in. And the minute that person looks at them wrong, raises their voice, is drunk, is high, the family member is becoming problematic, the call is going to come to the patrol, and then here comes the police. We are going to have to be better at how we approach these types of calls. Is training the issue? Not amount of training. I propose to you, it's the type of training. I propose to you that it's the type of training we're doing. Someone wrote, I hope the legislation is not watching. They should watch. They should watch this. And I think as thinking people, as educated, smart, experienced folks, we need to have an honest conversation about this. And for any type of legislators or advocacy groups that perhaps could be watching, I hope they'll watch the next part, because I'm going to show you something that I don't know that a lot of the public is aware of. And perhaps it's something that a lot of even police officers aren't aware of. Let's try. Let's explore that, shall we? Let's. You write this on the side of your cars. You write this on the side of maybe your business card. It is part of the law enforcement code of ethics, this notion of to protect and serve, right? It is a mantra, it is a slogan. Can I ask you a question about that? Take a look at the question on the screen. How would you answer that? Do police officers have a legal duty to provide police protection to the citizens they serve? How would you answer that? No, they do not. Someone said yes. David said not a legal one. I bet he means like maybe a moral obligation. There's a few folks that say no, yes, of course. I mean, we wouldn't write it on the side of the car if we didn't have a duty, right? Right? Only people in custody. Someone said it's actually in a few penal codes. Catherine said no legal duty, moral duty. Eva says only if a special relationship has been established. Uh-oh, she's bringing up a key word there. Julio says yes, it's actually in the code of ethics, the law enforcement code of ethics. Tina asks, well, wait a minute, on duty, yes, isn't there a sworn oath? Question, you are some of the highest performing police trainers in the country, probably in the world. And you all, there was not a consensus among this group to hear today if we have a legal duty to provide police protection. What if we ask the police officers who are on the streets, sort of the leading edge, and they're driving to some emergency and they're about to get out of their car and maybe engage with some person, do they have a legal duty to be there? Meaning, do they have to be there? What do police officers have to do? The public thinks we have to do some stuff. Many of us believe we have to do some stuff. Some of us are mixing in law with law enforcement code of ethics, which is a statement, a paragraph that one swears to, not unlike if you are a member of a religion, you attest to the fact that you abide by the tenets of that religion. Is that a legal standard? Is the law enforcement code of ethics a legal standard? Is a moral obligation the same as a legal standard? Luke brings up, we do have to make an arrest when there's an act of domestic violence. Interesting. Luke, is there anything in that law that says time, place, or manner? Meaning, do we have to make the arrest today, tomorrow, next week, 3 weeks from now, a month from now? Interesting. What if we asked the officers that work at your department what they think? Would they be familiar with this law? This is the California Government Code. Take a second to read that. California Government Code 845. Neither a public entity nor a public employee, you, me, is liable for failure to provide police protection service, or if police protection service is provided, for failing to provide sufficient police protection service. Wow. How many members of the public know that? How many police officers know that? Why would it be important to know that? Maybe that's just a California thing, right? Maybe, California has some goofy laws sometimes. Maybe it's just oh wait, it's a national standard. If you've ever heard of something called the public duty doctrine, this is the law that most often is cited, Warren versus the District of Columbia. Take a look at that real quick. Well, certainly when you become a police officer, you take on additional duties. After all, you swore to that oath. Certainly legally you're required to do things, right? Oh, wait, take a look at that. Same case. Warren versus the District of Columbia codified in 1981 something called the public duty doctrine, but you know what? It had already been codified in 1855. 1855. In 1855, in a case called South versus Maryland, it codified that the police officers don't have an affirmative duty to provide police protection to individuals. Rather, they have a generalized duty to act reasonably. There is no law absent a special relationship, which would be something like when we have custody of that person, when we've increased danger of that person, when we've made promises to that person. Absent those circumstances, the police don't have an affirmative duty to protect people. Let me ask you a question. Mom calls 911 and says, a 30-year-old son who lives in the basement, he's paranoid schizophrenic, he's drunk, he's high, he's off his meds, he has grabbed a gun, and he's talking about committing suicide. Mom and dad are in the house, they run out, they're calling 911, they're frantic. He's talking about a gun. You got some neighbors on all sides. What's gonna happen in your jurisdiction when that 911 call comes off? If it's anything like mine, they'll send a couple of units, maybe a supervisor, maybe stage medics down the street. And then what happens? We're gonna make contact with mom and dad. We're going to try to negotiate son out. Hey, come on out. We want to get you help. Has he committed a crime? Is it illegal in California to threaten to kill yourself? It's not. And he won't come out. Do we go in and get him? Do we close distance with him? Do we say, okay, man, I'm here to help you. You're not going to kill you. I might kill you, but that's exactly what we were doing 10 years ago. 15 years ago, we would break down people's doors, approach them with our guns out to tell them we're here to help you. Sounds asinine, right? Sounds asinine. What about if it's a machine gun? Modern agencies are disengaging and they're just leaving those scenes after a reasonable amount of time and trying to get them out. What if he has an AR-15 rifle with a scope on it and he's on his second story? And he's like, yeah, I'm definitely not coming out. I'm going to kill myself, but you guys can go ahead and leave. And you've got neighbors 360, around the house. Should the police still leave? What about if he's in a city park? He's parked in the park, your city park, in the car, multiple 911 calls reporting man with a gun in a park, and he's going to kill himself. You've got out there, you've tried negotiating through loud hailers, PA speakers, sir, please, just put down the gun, come on out. We're just going to get you some help. 5150, you're not in any criminal trouble. He's on the phone with you saying, thanks, but no thanks. I'm just going to wait for you guys to leave and I'm going to kill myself in a city park in a public place. You've backed everyone out. What do we do then? What do we do then? The decisions that those officers make at those types of scenes can have far-reaching consequences. Like was pointed out by one of the attendees today, officers are in a no-win situation. Play that one out. The officers leave from the city park. The guy ends up becoming homicidal, moves the gun literally 6 inches and starts shooting people. The officers would be criticized for what? Neglect, abandonment, dereliction of duty. But if they do make entry into that car and try to do a disarm of this person or use some sort of kinetic means against him, gas and whatnot, they'll be criticized. What do you do? It's almost like we're in a no-win situation, right? Could you be sued? Michael points out, you're going to get sued regardless. Sure. Could you be sued for anything? Yes. If you are sued, would you like to be on solid legal footing and understand the tenets of special relationships, state-created danger, public duty doctrine? Or would you like to be under false constraints? I felt I had to. We kicked in the guy's door. We broke in his windows. We ended up confronting him and getting into shooting because, quote, I felt I had to. Remember, there was a little bit of discussion just a second ago about whether officers have a duty to act or not. And are we getting in trouble because of what we commit or what we omit? Are we getting in trouble for what we do or what we don't do? The answer, almost to a T, or almost 100%, is what officers do, what we commit. We take action, we hit with baton, we shoot person, we tackle person, we break door. It's an action versus the lack of action. And as police officers going into the 2021, we have to be crystal clear about what we're required to do and what we're not, because us trying to impose care on people, trying to impose our will on people, saying we are going to help you whether you like it or not, because we are afraid of some liability that might be out there, is not working for us anymore. De-escalation training that amounts to nothing more than you should talk nice to people, you should try to talk people down, isn't going to help the officer on the street, right? If I'm a police officer on the street and I'm dealing with someone who's in crisis and I need a little bit more, right? Part of what officers need is solid legal foundation, is understanding the best practices out there. Don't get sucked in. Do not rush in for these reasons. And I can tell you quite plainly, having taught this material all over California and beyond, there is immense confusion over the public duty doctrine, over special relationships, how special relationships are created, over what to do with that non-criminal barricade, that person that is barricaded in their own vehicle, their home, they're refusing to come out. We still have officers today who believe if I just change the variables a little bit, he's got a rifle, he's in the car, we have to do something because we can't leave him out there. Society, the public, is not liking the way we're doing things. We're going to have to change some things. And part of that is first understanding, what do I have to do, right? Any decision that I got to make, I got to understand, what are the rules, guys? What constraints am I under? I want to know my options. If you're telling me I have to do something, you narrow my options. If I believe that when I see a domestic violence suspect going down the street, I have to make an immediate arrest because of a law, then I may jump out and take on someone by myself and have to use more force to subdue him when I should have just waited for my cover, when I should have got a better tactical advantage on this guy. It really gets into that specificity that we need. Because remember, this de-escalation training has been going on since 1960, at least. We're going to have to get better at training. And I believe wholeheartedly it starts with specificity. It starts with, no. Let's not look at vague notions of liability. I want to see the actual case law. I want to see the actual laws. I want to talk about Doe versus Modesto, where officers did disengage from a non-criminal barricade and were found to have created a special relationship, and it had nothing to do with the fact they left. right? They left the non-criminal barricade, they disengaged, they were found to have created a special relationship inadvertently, and it had nothing to do with the fact they left, right? It's about learning, why did that guy in Broward County, remember Scott Peters said that SRO, that deputy at Parkland High School, he was arrested for child neglect. So how can it be that officers don't have an affirmative duty to act? It's about understanding the why about that. Why is that? How did he create a special relationship? SROs have contracts with schools, right? Agencies create contracts with schools. Contracts are a promise to provide police protection. If you want to create a special relationship with a school, simply create a contract, right? Don't believe me. Don't believe anything I'm telling you. Why would you believe me? You don't even know me. Demand proof, demand evidence-based training, demand to see those cases. Doe versus Modesto, South versus Maryland, Warren versus District of Columbia, and the myriad of cases about this very situation, much less others. Demand to see those. Call your city attorney, your county attorney, demand that they provide you, hey, help me understand when liability occurs if we were to leave the scene, and then play out the, hey, it's in a car, it's in a boat, it's in a park. I want to understand that, right? We deserve better as police officers, and that starts with better training, more specific training. We need to understand and all be on the same page with things we're not going to do, right? Things we're not going to do. Plumas County SO were, very famously, at least in the training world, interviewed in an LA Times article in which they announced we will no longer respond on cases that we believe to be suicide by cop. So they talked about a call where a family says, our loved one has let us know that he is in his garage and the side door is open, and to let the police know that, and he's mentally ill and suicidal. And the police said, so he's down that long winding road where he has the tactical advantage, and he wants us to come down this funnel and then go see what's going on in there. Yeah, we think this could be a suicide by cop. And society has not equipped us or protected us legally to deal with that. So we're going to be a little choosy about what we do because we understand the public duty doctrine. So we're not going to respond to that. And the family went, what do you mean? You guys are the police. Exactly. But unfortunately, we are not equipped with the tools nor the legal protection to solve all problems. We do swear to the law enforcement code of ethics, and we will, where possible, serve and protect. But we need to understand kind of what the laws are with that. We need to understand what the laws are with that. I want to just look at some of the chat. Okay, there's some information sharing going on. Doe versus Modesto is the actual case. The woman's name was not Doe. Her last name was Pena Luna, P-E-N-N-A-L-U-N-A, Pena Luna. And the reason they called it Doe is because they sued on behalf of her minor, her daughter was one of the plaintiffs. Some other folks mentioned different government codes, 845, 856C1. Those are all excellent. Some of those deal specifically with the immunity, specific immunity against liability when deciding to take someone into custody for 5150 or not. Mike brought out, we don't make entry when there's no one else threatened. You would want to reference yeah, that's exactly right, Mike. And you'd want to reference the National Tactical Officers Association's safety priorities. Google National Tactical Officers Safety Priorities. That's the old priority of life matrix that some of you might be familiar with. That's exactly a great decision-making model. I'm an advocate for evidence-based, science-based, research-based materials and training. It's not good enough to stand in front of students anymore and just say, well, there is a law that says this and there is a law that says that. And when the student says, what law is that? The instructor says, I don't know. That's not good enough for anymore. You deserve better. I deserve better as a working police officer. I deserve the instructors that are teaching me that as well. And I think that our students from the Savage Training Group deserve better. But listen, it is very easy for me to sit up here and pontificate and just tell you what you should be doing and all that kind of stuff. That's not good enough either. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to join you and try to make it a little bit easier on your organization. I believe in saving lives. I believe in we can save the mentally ill lives. I believe we can keep cops out of jail by helping them understand things like what to do in really specific circumstances. I don't want to give you vague training. I want to give you really specific training. Here's the laws, man. Here's the cases you got to look at. Here's the policies and stuff. So the Savage Training Group, we're going to give you something that we hope will be valuable. This is our website. We've got a special page on there now that is just for the people on this call. Please, 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 please don't share with anyone else. This is just for you. I'm trying to give you something more than just information. We're going to give you a discount on the training class we have. It's our most popular class by far, called Response to the Non-Criminal Barricade, Disengagement and Special Relationships. We'll cover 30% of the cost. We'll take 30% off of that. We'll cover that. And if you send one person from your agency, I honestly, truly believe this can save lives and keep cops out of jail. Here's a little bit about the course.
As a law enforcement officer, how you respond to an armed and suicidal, barricaded subject can mean the difference between liability or not, and even life or death. That's why we created an online version of our Response to the Non-Criminal Barricade course. You can now access all the information from our most popular course from anywhere you choose. This course contains 3.5 hours of HD videos and 11 easy-to-follow chapters. You'll walk away with a mastery of the latest tactics, plus the confidence to know how to prevent yourself and your agency from becoming liable. But that's not it. We've spent years collecting the best non-criminal barricade policies from progressive police agencies from all over. As a bonus to you, we're going to give you access to those, plus a 3-page decision-making guide. Look, this isn't some dry webinar or some half-hearted attempt at online training. This is a modern course presented on a high-quality learning platform specifically designed to be easy to use and keep you engaged. You can move through the course at your own pace, so you're always in control. We're so excited to finally be able to extend this opportunity to you, so you can access our most popular course, all from the comfort of your own home, office, or control call. When you're all done, you'll receive a certificate of completion. So register now, get immediate access to the course, and the confidence to know you're doing it right.
Yeah, why take the time? Why try to sell you that? It's for this reason. It would be negligent of me not to try to sell you that class. It would be improper for me not to try to sell you that class for this reason. It's well researched. It took years to compile that kind of information, and it's successful. And the number one, my favorite comment we get back from it afterwards is people just like you and me who call us and say, it happened just like you said it was. And we were able to leave and disengage. We made sure we didn't create special relationships by the things that we're telling the neighbors or the family. We put a tactical plan in place for re-engagement. We went through all of the different procedures and steps, and we were able to make a decision that saved lives. Is everybody always happy with the decision? No, but they went on to live. They went on to live. And more as we go into 2021, we're gonna have to be smarter about what we're doing. So if that's something that interests you and you'd like to kind of get what I believe to be the latest and greatest info out there, you can go to savagetraininggroup.com/discount or use the QR code that's on the screen there. If you don't know what that QR code is, just grab a millennial from the left or the right of you. If you hold your camera up to that QR code, that'll take you to the website. We'll give you 30% off as many or as few as folks as you'd like to send, and that's good till October 28th. Why are we doing this? Because I think it's the right thing to do. I think it wouldn't be proper for me to sit here and just give you all the stuff you should be doing and not join you in this Herculean task that police trainers are going to have to accomplish going into 2021, okay? This is part of the puzzle. This is part of the de-escalation puzzle. It's not all of it. It's not all of it. It is an ongoing process, but this is a huge piece. Think about the percentage of folks you deal with that are mentally ill, that the officers deal with on the street, probably 60%, 50%, somewhere around there. This is going to help us save some of those folks' lives, and hopefully keep cops out of jail, right, and out of hot water. Is it a perfect answer? Maybe not, but it's a better answer and it'll save lives. So if you go to savagetraininggroup.com/discount, or use that QR code, you can take advantage of that. I just kind of want to leave you with this thought process there, is that the old way, the check the box training that is compliance based and isn't involving learning is just really not good enough for you, for us anymore. And as you and me and we continue to evolve into 2021, we have a tremendous opportunity, right? I don't say that to be coy. It's going to stink. It's not easy. The stuff that we're being asked to do, some of it is unrealistic, but we're not being asked to do it. We're being mandated to do it. It's not up to you or I whether we like it or not. So let's get really, really good at it. Let's get very, very good at this decision-making process. And decision-making starts with knowing what constraints we're under, right? What constraints we're under. So if you need anything from us at the Savage Training Group, we're based here in San Jose, California. I am a police officer here in Santa Clara County. And so I have a vested interest in this. And we have tons of classes you can check out on the website: FTO Update, Response Tactics for Critical Incidents and In-Progress Crimes, which is a basic critical incident response course, a crisis comms course for social media, and the list kind of goes on. We've got some new stuff coming out. If you'd like to go to the live version of this Response to the Non-Criminal Barricade class, I will be in Fountain Valley on a week from today on the 21st. Teaching the class live, and it's a little bit maybe more fun sometimes. We'll be in San Rafael on November 13th, Camarillo in December, Redwood City in January. So you could check the dates on there. And of course, if you'd like to host the course, I'd be happy to do that. Anything I can do for you personally, please just contact me through the website, savagetraininggroup.com. And other than that, I'd be happy to go through some questions, or maybe Marty's got some thoughts there, or some chat info he saw there. We can just kind of start buzzing through some of that stuff.
Sure, Scott. I got a question for you that comes from Sandra. And the question asks, why are officers held accountable when they stand by and do nothing while their partner is using excessive force on someone?
Why aren't they held accountable?
Why are they held accountable? Why are they lumped in with the officer who's using the excessive force? Why are they used?
Oh, meaning, do they have a duty to intercede? Well, anyone that we're collectively as the police using force on is in our custody, right? And we have developed a special relationship. So the ways to kind of trigger special relationships with people is increasing danger to someone. That would be like when you pull over a DUI and you hand them keys to a faster car and a bottle of whiskey or something like that. And the other way is when there's any promises made, express or implied. And the minute we take someone into custody, we have a special relationship. The minute we attempt to take them into custody, we're developing some special relationships with those person. Also, specifically, there is a duty to intercede law, protocol, policy that would also kind of seed that. So once we have someone in the back of our police car and we seatbelt them in, or don't seatbelt them in, and we crash, they are in our custody. And so it's not to say that we never create special relationships with people. We actually do it every day the minute we put handcuffs on somebody. But in this aspect, when we're talking about this sort of unwinnable tactical dilemma, guys in a house with a gun won't come out. There's no associated crime or a very minor crime. We're not on solid legal footing. The intent, the outcome, we can pretty much foresee what's going to happen, isn't good. That's when we don't want to create those special relationships with the person. There's also some ways you can sever those special relationships. And also, great question for your city or county attorney. Email them that question. They'll respond by calling you.
You touched on a lot of the questions as you're going through, and so I'm just waiting for others to pop up here. So nothing immediately, unless there's something comes to mind, Scott.
No, I think it's I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, you can always go through the website and just send it, hey, we've got this sort of weird dilemma that we're trying to work through, and I'd be happy to help out, because I really do believe we're kind of all in this together, as Pollyanna as that may sound, but I honestly believe that's true. You can see the incredible work that Post is doing, from creating this new de-escalation manual to developing best practices for what is the requirements in SB 230 going to look like. How do you comply with those things? Post is working on it and doing it as quickly as they can. Legislation is changing constantly. All of us as trainers are working tirelessly, writing new courses, researching things, and the officers and the training manager are doing the best they can. So I think we're kind of all in this together. And I can tell you quite plainly that other states are watching what we're doing, kind of letting us maybe figure this stuff out first. And those laws are starting to kind of sweep across the nation. So we're groundbreaking. I don't know whether we want to be on the leading edge of this, but I guess as a state we are.
Another question did pop up. Scott asks this, says, how do you or can you decreate a special relationship once it's been created?
Yeah, I think the legal term might be severing, right? Severing a special relationship, and special relationships are often created, if we're talking about in a non-criminal barricade, by not what we do, right, but what we say. And so if one officer says to someone, listen, we will protect you, we will get him out, we will take him to the hospital, or, he's just, don't worry, you can go back in your house, he's just suicidal, it's not like he's homicidal, and starts making these predictions based on absolutely no data. What I would do in that situation, and I've never found where it's been codified in case law, as far as being able to sever it, but I know what I would do based on all the research I've done in that area, is I would walk up to that person and make it very clear that we are changing what he just said. Okay, I want to explain to you what the officer just said is mistaken, okay? Listen, we can't provide you police protection. No police officer can promise you that this guy is not going to become homicidal. So what I would really recommend for you is that you take reasonable precautions for your safety, okay? Any officer that's telling you we can protect you, that's not correct, because we're not even going to be here. So, how could we protect you? There's very famous case law, Mann versus California, which, involves basically promises made to people, either implied or expressed. If you take a look at some of the stuff that's in our course, we actually just kind of hand you all those laws, because there's so many out there, and I truly feel like the legislators have been trying to tell us this stuff for years, and for whatever reason, it's not getting into our brain. Thinking back to going to the police academy, the only time I remember special relationships being mentioned, it went by really quick, and it was in the bomb threat learning domain. That's where I remember it from, the bomb threat, because they said, okay, if there's a bomb threat at a business, you don't want to tell the business to evacuate and stand over there, because what if the bomb is over there? Then you'll be liable. You told them to stand over there, they stood over there, now that's where the real bomb was. So you say things like, hey, if you want to evacuate, you should. If you want to, search the building, you can. But we want to avoid making those promises. And this goes against, I know it's hard to swallow and it doesn't make any sense, and it goes against our instinct to protect, our instinct to shelter, to comfort, right? And if you look at Doe versus Modesto, great special relationship case, it's really by what the officer said. And to a person, every one of those Modesto PD officers, based on everything I've read, is trying to do the right thing, super altruistic, super just trying to minimize carnage and comfort people that need comforting. And they were held accountable for that. And so what I'm saying is we just need to be a little bit more careful about how we comfort people, the things we say to people.
Scott, here's a more generic question on training specifically. And as a trainer, what has been your biggest challenge in training other peace officers?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is getting folks maybe out of the mindset of the old way we used to do things, right? And it's really a challenge to myself. When I first started training, I was following what other people had done, which is, you write a long PowerPoint and you stand up and you show the PowerPoint, you click through it, and that's your presentation. And it's really a mind shift change that I was able to make by doing the reading and doing the research into not the old way of how we're taught that people learn and we're taught about teaching, right? But the research, the most up-to-date, accurate research. And I think what that person's asking there is, what's the challenge? He's probably not asking because he's so interested in what I think. He's more just like, give me a tip, give me something I can use. Here's the number one tip I would give you if you're a trainer. Forget everything else. Go down to the bookstore. They still have bookstores. Go down to Amazon, go on Amazon and write Make It Stick by Peter Brown and Rodinger and Company. Make It Stick. Buy the book, Make It Stick. Read it, and then when you're done, reread it. And that is the collection of, it is name dropped constantly by trainers. It is a collection of the most up-to-date science on learning. That's the subtitle of the book, The Science of Learning. It's up to date. It's not the old 30-year-old stuff you might have been hearing that was never really scientifically vetted. Evidence-based, science-based. This is how humans actually learn, right? It'll teach you and give you some new tools, different ways of thinking, and you'll always end every training session, every PowerPoint, every scenario, every range evolution, everything by asking yourself, did learning occur? Did learning occur, right? Different than did training occur. Teaching, did I teach or was I just talking? Have I taught you anything or was I just talking? I was talking or, learning, did learning occur? So yeah, check out Make It Stick by Peter Brown, Rodinger, and I forget the third author's name.
Well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. Scott Loggins, are you on the air with us? Okay, seems like not. Well, that's the end of our session. Scott, just want to thank you on behalf of Post for your presentation. And for the rest of the participants, there's a break now. The next block of instruction is going to start back up at 9:45. There's developing a training plan, and there's also the introduction to course certification. So thank you very much. And Scott, thank you again.
Thank you, Marty, and good luck to everyone who's out there. Thanks for having me.
For those of you that are still online, please complete the survey noted on the screen in order to receive Post CPT credit. It's https://post.ca.gov/eval.